This is Gregory Longini, Secretary to the Chicago Transit Board. On June 5th, 2020, the CTA Board Office issued a notice of change format for the meeting of the Committee on Finance, Audit, and Budget, and for the Chicago Transit Board meeting scheduled for June 10th, 2020, due to COVID-19 pandemic. Governor J.B. Pritzker's executive order prohibiting public gatherings in excess of 10 individuals means that Chicago Transit Authority public meetings occurring today will take place only electronically. Governor J.B. Pritzker's Executive Order 2020-07, as extended by his Executive Order 2020-37, as well as Illinois Attorney General guidance to public bodies on the Open Meetings Act and the Freedom of Information Act during the COVID-19 pandemic, allow for public bodies to hold public meetings electronically to prevent the transmission of COVID-19. And in compliance with the Open Meetings Act, let the record show that both General Counsel Karen Simons and Board Secretary Gregory Longini are physically in the building of the CTA headquarters at 567 West Lake Street in Chicago. Chairman Silva, you may begin the meeting and proceed to agenda item number 1.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I would like to call to order the June 10, 2020 meeting of the Committee on Finance, Audit, and Budget. Will the Secretary call the roll?
Yes. Director Chevrolet.
Present.
Director Jakes.
Here.
Director Miller.
Here.
Director Irvine.
Here.
Director Alvarez.
Here.
Director Peterson.
Present.
Chairman Silva.
Here.
We have a quorum, sir, with all 7 members of the committee present. You may proceed to agenda item number, and let the record also show that General Counsel Karen Simons and President Dorval Carter are participating in this meeting as well. Please proceed, Chairman.
Our first order of business is the approval of the committee minutes of May 13, 2020. Will the Secretary call the roll?
Yes. Director Chevrolet.
Here.
You vote yes?
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Director Jakes.
Yes.
Director Miller.
Yes.
Director Irvine.
Yes.
Director Alvarez.
Yes.
Director Peterson.
Yes.
Director Silva.
Here.
The minutes are approved with 7 yes votes. Chairman, we may proceed to agenda item number 3.
Our next order of business is the finance report. Karen Fine. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm Jeremy. Thank you. Good morning. I'm Jeremy Fine, your Chief Financial Officer, and I'll be reporting on the April results. With regard to farebox totals, we see those down approximately $25 million due to the full month of COVID-related ridership impact, including rear door boarding that started on April 9th. Passes were also down approximately 14 million. Overall, we saw farebox-related revenues down about 83% for the month. So that equates out to about $39 million down in total farebox and pass revenues for the month of April. As you may recall, last month we saw farebox and pass totals down for about half of the month of 19 million. Reduced fare reimbursement we see up approximately $200,000, which is due to timing. We see non-farebox totals down approximately 4 million, and again, as ridership drops, we see a reciprocal impact on parking concessions and advertisement. So overall, we see for the month of April, we're down on revenues approximately $43 million. And I'll talk about how the federal CARES funding helps us offset that shortfall. But the year-to-date numbers follow a similar form in that we see the trajectory on each of the line items similar to what I just walked through, with a total revenue loss year-to-date about $63 million. Again, driven primarily due to the COVID outbreak and the impacts that we witnessed the second half of last month and the entire month of April. We have done a great job with regard to expenses with the help of the departments and being able to control expenses. We see the labor line for the month of April positive slightly to the tune of about $900,000. We were over budget on overtime by about $1 million, but we did benefit in a short-term basis from some unfilled positions, so we saw a positive variance on a monthly basis on that line. With regard to materials, we were negative by about $100,000. Cleaning costs for the month with regard to COVID were about $350,000, and that obviously drove us into the negative on a budgetary basis for the month of April. With regard to fuel, we see a positive variance, on that line of about $800,000, as is the same with power, where we saw a $700,000 positive variance. Again, as we talked about last month, we saw, when there's not as much traffic on the roads or wait time, we have a positive variance that accrues on those two lines. I&D was essentially flat for the month. Security services, again, relatively flat for the month. And other expenses, we saw a positive variance of about $2.5 million, which is due to timing of some invoices. So overall, we have been able to hold our own, if not accrue a little bit of positive benefit to the tune of about $5 million for the month of April. Obviously, that wasn't enough to offset the shortfalls that we experienced on revenues. But again, the federal CARES funding that we receive, in which we received our first increment last Monday, we are able to staunch the bleeding in the short term with those very critical federal funding strips. Net revenues for the month are down, again, as I mentioned, $39 million. On a year-to-date, net revenues are down about $59 million. We see public funding, down on a monthly basis a little less than $6 million, and on a year-to-date basis, about $15 million, driven primarily due to the real estate transfer tax, which equates out to about $10 million of that shortfall. Again, we're starting to see, hopefully, some green shoots in the larger economy with regard to retail sales, some residential sales numbers nationally that are coming out. So again, hopefully we see a rebound here, which will help us, not only in the public funding numbers, but will have a reciprocal effect on the farebox numbers at some point. With regard to energy, we have, again, locked in what we need for fuel and electricity and natural gas in the short term. We have been able to, again, make selective purchases with regard to fuel, when rates were exceptionally low for 2022 needs. So again, we'll look for additional opportunities to lock in additional funding for those future fuel needs, in particular in 2022 and beyond, as those avail themselves. The final thing that I'd like to mention as just a brief update with regard to the state budget. The state budget was passed by the legislature at the end of May. They are obviously having to bridge some of their budgetary gap with the use of the Federal Reserve Municipal Liquidity Program that was set up under the CARES Act. The cuts that have historically, since about 2015, been enacted upon some of the funding strips that the CTA receives for PTF, public transportation funds, the reduced fare reimbursement, and sales tax remain in effect, as we go into the state's fiscal year 2021. There's no other cuts at this time that have been laid out. But again, if there's any changes to that, we'll brief the board at that point. That concludes my prepared remarks for the FAB presentation for the month of April.
Thank you very much, Jeremy. Chairman Silva, do you have any questions for Jeremy?
Yes. How much of the federal money did you use?
So for the CARES funding that we received that I referenced Monday past was for the shortfall of system-generated revenues for the month of March. So that was a $19 million shortfall that we discussed at the last board meeting. We received those funds last Monday. We have subsequently made another request for the shortfalls in system-generated revenues for the $39 million that we've talked about today. So we should be receiving that shortly. And then again, we'll make additional requests for public funding shortfalls and other system-generated revenue shortfalls as we move forward. So again, we've received approximately $19 million to date. Again, we were one of the first to request those draws, so we're very excited again with the opportunity to have that new funding strip, albeit it's a discrete pot of money. So it's very critical for us to continue to control our expenses so that we can make those dollars stretch as far as we can, because we don't know what's going to happen with COVID as the fall and winter, flu season starts back up. So again, it's very critical for us to stretch those dollars as long as possible, but we are excited to be one of the first transit agencies in the country to actually do a draw on that new CARES program.
And how much did you receive from the state?
With regard to the most recent strip that we've received from the state, we continue to receive pieces of all of our anticipated revenues. We receive sales tax and PTF at a regular cadence monthly. We receive the reduced fare reimbursement funding. We received that a little earlier than typical this year. We received not only a little bit earlier, but in a little bit larger dollar denomination. We usually receive about half of the $14 million, by June, July. We actually received it a few weeks early, and we received $12 million of the $14 million. So again, hopefully we receive the remaining two as they do the true up late summer, early fall, and we will again keep a tight eye towards the monthly remittances that we receive from the state through the RTA for sales tax and PTF and the like.
Thank you.
Director Peterson, do you have any questions?
Yeah, Greg. So one question and a statement, and I'll start with the statement first. Jeremy, I'm sure you and your team has started to already do this, but I just wanted to, kind of put it out there. We're about 5 months out, probably before we've got to come up with a budget for FY21. And so I would hope that in your modeling, it would be a wise assumption to assume that the state finances probably won't get back to where they need to be in 2021. I know we continue to talk with legislators in Springfield and the governor's office about the need to continue to fund CTA and mass transit. But I'm just looking at a summary of the cuts that remained in place for 2021, which will not only affect us the rest of this calendar year, but the first 6 months of FY21. So I would just suggest as you're doing your modeling that you, assume that these cuts are going to remain in place, even going through 2021 from the state. Because if we're going to have a rebound of this, a resurgence of COVID-19, In the fall, again, I just don't see the state finances improving in 2021. So that was my statement regarding budget planning for next year. Like I said, I'm assuming that as you're doing your modeling, being that we're only 5 to 6 months out before we've got a budget, that you've already taken that into consideration. But I wanted to just put it on record that I think that's important to do. The question that I've got, when you go over to the commodities that we purchase, I noticed that when it comes to fuel, we go through 2022, power, we go through 2024, and then on natural gas, we go through 2022. And I might have asked this question in the past. I just forgot the answer. How is it that we can go out longer for acquiring power than we can for fuel or natural gas? What's the thinking behind that?
Yeah, that's a great question. It has to do with how those markets actually work and also with regard to delivery. So the markets are kind of set up a little differently, where you can actually go out further on power, but you can't go out as far on fuel and natural gas. And some of that has to do with actual taking of receipt of delivery of fuel, where we put it in our fuel tanks, and unlike that on the power side, where it's just kind of on the grid, it kind of avails itself for kind of longer term, purchases like that. So some of it has to do with just like the way that the market works historically, and some of it has to do with, the way that you actually take delivery and not getting too far out over your skis with regard to, actually having to take physical delivery of some of those commodities.
Okay, thank you.
Director Alvarez, do you have any questions?
No, I don't.
Director Chevrolet?
No questions.
Director Jakes?
I do have a question. Jeremy, you said that there was no further conversation as it relates to cuts. Does that mean there's no conversation as it relates to furloughing employees?
With regard to the cuts that I was referencing was at the state level with regard to the public funding that we receive. And again, there's not been any further kind of illumination with regard to that.
Director Jakes, this is Dorval Carter. No, we have not had any conversations about either service cuts or employee furloughs at this point.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Say, Greg.
Yes.
Yeah, this is Terry. I just found another question I'd written on a sticker pad that I wanted to ask Jeremy that might have been shared with the board during the briefings with them, but I just wanted to be sure. I know early on when we knew we were going to get some of the CARE Act funding, we also reached back out to the FTA to talk about, some flexibility in terms of how those funds could be used. I know with the city and the state, in order to utilize those funds, they have to be COVID related. But Jeremy, I know early on you were talking about not only revenue replacement, but also pension debt. And I don't know if you shared it with the board. Did we ever get a response from the FTA if some of those areas would fall up under use of the $800-something million that we could get reimbursed for?
So we had, very robust discussions with the FTA with regard to the allowable uses. We were, again, one of the first to actually draw on the program. So we were one of the first to actually start those discussions with the FTA, and I think that they're rolling out a lot of what our discussions were to the rest of the industry. We are allowed to use that for allowable, operating expenses. We do have other funding, though, for certain costs, that may be in certain categories. Again, we do receive, a continued strip of public funding from the state in the form of sales taxes. The sales tax is actually, kind of the basis of most of our debt anyway. So, again, the debt is backed by sales tax. We continue to receive sales tax. And as such, the sales taxes are kind of going naturally in the flow of funds for those related costs. But again, we have some flexibility here to continue to make operating related expenses eligible for the federal funding. So again, we have different pots of money, and we have enough in each of those pots to make the allowable expense payments.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Director Miller, any questions?
No.
Director Irvine, any questions?
No questions, thanks.
Thank you. Chairman Silva, since there are no further questions regarding the finance report, you may proceed to agenda item number 4.
Our next order of business is the independent auditor's presentation for fiscal year 2019.
Thank you. This is Jeremy Fine, Chief Financial Officer, and I'm joined today by Christine Torres, who's a partner at Crow, and Maria Bolita, who's a partner at Adelphia. Again, we are greatly appreciative of the hard work of not only of our outside auditors, but the internal accounting team, particularly in a COVID environment, of having to take the audit essentially, remote. And I think it's a testament to the fact that, our team and the outside auditors had a good process to be able to continue that critical annual review, on a remote basis. So again, great job, and we appreciate Crow and Adelphia's involvement here. I'll turn it over to Christine for the annual review.
Thank you. Good morning. I am Christine Torres, partner with Crow, and here with Maria Bolita, partner from Adelphia, who was our DBE subcontractor on this engagement. We have completed our audit of the December 31st, 2019 financial statements. We were engaged to audit the financial statements to determine that they are reasonably stated in all material respects, as well as to audit the federal grant funds in accordance with the guidelines set forth by the federal government for compliance with both the laws and regulations as they're outlined. In regards to the financial statement audit, it has been completed and the auditor's opinion was issued. The audit opinion was unmodified or a clean audit opinion, which basically means that the amounts presented in the financial statements and the notes to the financial statements are reasonably stated in all material respects. As required by government auditing standards, we also looked at the internal controls that are in place over financial reporting to determine if there are any items that are required to be identified under these standards. We do not have any findings to report under our government auditing standards testing. With that, I'm going to ask Maria to go ahead and provide our update on the federal audit.
Thank you, Christine. Good morning. I am Maria Bolita. I'm a partner with Adelphia, and I am representing the DBE subcontractor on the audit. I'm happy to report that Crow was able to issue an unmodified opinion on compliance with the federal programs for the year ended December 31st, 2019. CTA receives a number of federal grant programs. However, based on federal guidelines, our testing was focused on 2 major programs this year. Those programs are the Federal Transit Cluster and the Rail and Transit Security Grant. Due to the size of these grants, we had 98.7% coverage, 9.7 million of which representing the Transit Security Grant, the 431.6 million representing the Federal Transit Cluster, out of the total 447 million of the federal funds spent, as these 2 are the largest federal programs the CTA expends from. As part of this process, we also evaluated the internal controls over compliance with those programs. Based on this testing, I am pleased to report that we did not have any findings. Christine?
Thanks, Maria. That is a quick summary of our audit procedures for both the financial and federal audits. We would also like to thank the entire finance department for working with us in a professional manner and providing us with the information required to timely issue the audit opinions. As Jeremy mentioned, this was a very unique year with difficult circumstances, and everyone worked very hard to provide all the information remotely so that we could meet all of the required deadlines as we have in the past. And we do appreciate all the effort that took. At this point, if there are any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer those.
Thank you. Chairman Silva, do you have any questions?
No, I don't, no.
Director Peterson, do you have any questions?
No question, just a statement. I just want to thank Jeremy and his entire team for working with Crow to get our audit done in such a timely manner. I know it was tough trying to do all of this by Zoom and not being in person, so I just wanted to applaud the staff and their efforts in terms of making sure that we were able to get our audit done on time this year. Thank you.
Director Alvarez-Rosales?
No questions, but just I want to reiterate that. I know I said that in the briefing yesterday, but thank you to the whole team because this was a tough time and you got us through it in an exemplary way. So thank you. Let them know that, Jeremy. Thanks.
Thank you.
Director Chevrolet, any questions?
No questions.
Director Jakes?
No questions.
Director Miller?
No questions.
Director Irvine?
No questions.
Okay, then I want to thank the auditors for their presentation. And Chairman Silva, we may proceed to agenda item number 5.
Our next order of business is the review of an ordinance authorizing a locker location pilot agreement with the Amazon.com Services, LLC to install, operate, and maintain package delivery lockers at designated rail stations. Jeremy?
Thank you. Again, I'm Jeremy Fine, your Chief Financial Officer. I'm joined by Stina Fish, who's Manager of Business Development. And today I present for your consideration an agreement with Amazon to pilot the use of Amazon delivery lockers at 5 CTA stations. This pilot is intended to test the viability of delivery lockers in CTA stations, and CTA has identified 5 locations for a pilot program, including Thorndale Red on the north side, Cumberland Blue on the northwest side, Cicero Green on the west side, Pulaski Orange on the southwest side, and 95th Street Red on the south side. The lockers are expected to provide an amenity to CTA customers who will be able to conveniently pick up or return packages as part of their CTA trip. The term of the pilot is for 1 year, during which time Amazon will share information with CTA about usage patterns at the lockers, and Amazon will be fully responsible for all costs related to the procurement, installation, servicing, and operations of the lockers, including any necessary costs to run electricity to those locations. Amazon will pay CTA a monthly fee of $25 per machine per month to reimburse CTA for operating expenses, including the cost of electricity. Amazon will maintain insurance coverage for installing and operating the lockers on CTA property. The lockers also offer a range of security and accessibility features, and over the course of the year-long pilot, the CTA and Amazon will monitor usage of the lockers, ridership at the designated stations, and customer feedback, and the CTA will determine whether to pursue delivery lockers and CTA stations on a wider, more long-term basis. Amazon provides delivery lockers services at 3,000 locations across the United States and more than 6,000 worldwide. But we are pleased to be able to test these as an amenity to CTA customers, and we appear to be the first U.S. transit agency to provide these lockers. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Jeremy. Chairman Silva, do you have any questions?
Yes. Are the lockers the same size in every station?
No, the lockers will be sized dependent upon the available footprint in the station at the locations that have been identified. So they'll be, they'll be different depending on the available space at those different stations.
So all the liabilities are Amazon liabilities. Okay, we're not.
That's correct.
Not CTA at all.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
And will Amazon have people in lockers in the station, okay, all day?
No,
Or
so
do we have to
they will be monitoring the lockers. They'll be delivering packages. They'll be cleaning the lockers. And if there's some malfunction or something in a locker, like somebody puts unwraps the package, puts their packaging back in the lockers are sophisticated enough to identify that there's something in there. So they'll dispatch somebody to come and clear that locker. But again, there'll be a lot of touch points with Amazon employees throughout the day just because of the, kind of the cleaning, delivery process, but also if there's any kind of malfunction. But there will not be somebody stationed at each station that will be an Amazon employee, but they will be, again, kind of in touch points with those locker bays at each station on a regular basis.
Good. Thank you.
Director Peterson, do you have any questions?
I do not. Thanks, Greg.
Director Alvarez-Rosales.
No, I do not.
Director Chevrolet.
No questions.
Director Jakes.
Question, Jeremy. So an agent will not have the key or have access to any of those boxes, right?
So they'll have the ability to contact the Amazon folks who can, if there's some issue that needs to be addressed immediately, they can, open those remotely if need be. But again, Amazon has not seen that type of need. And again, they have a number of these worldwide, and not in the U.S., but worldwide. They also are in transit related areas, like in the French National Railway system and things like that. So again, they've not had to deal with any of those types of issues, but if need be, they can open those remotely. Again, they'll be dispatching people, their individuals directly as well.
Thank you.
Director Miller, any questions?
Yes. Jeremy, you said that this is for a year-long project. Is this a pilot program? And are you looking to do others?
Yeah, so this is for a pilot, for a one-year pilot. And again, we're very excited to bring this new customer amenity to CTA customers, which hopefully should make it easier for them to pick up and drop off packages, particularly during the upcoming holiday season. So, if this is received well by the customers, which we expect it will, we can roll this out in a larger basis throughout the system. There are other entities, and if the pilot does work well, we'll be back out on the street to solicit bids from folks for potential other participants, whether that be a FedEx, UPS type entity or mailboxes, et cetera, type entity. But with regard to the pilot, Amazon was the one that expressed interest in this particular pilot. But again, if this proves out well, and this is a proof of concept, we may have other bidders in the future.
Okay, thank you.
Director Irvine?
No questions.
Since there are no further questions, Chairman Silva, on this item.
Since there are no further questions, may I have leave to place this item on the omnibus for board approval?
This is Director Chevrolet. So moved.
And I'll second it.
By Director Alvarez-Rosales. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Chairman Silva, we may proceed to agenda item number 6.
Our next order of business is the review of an ordinance authorizing a co-promotional agreement with the City of Chicago through its Department of Assets, Information and Services.
Thank you. This is Jeremy Fine, your Chief Financial Officer. I'm joined by Stina Fish, who is the Manager of Business Development. And today I present for your consideration a co-promotional trade agreement with the City of Chicago Department of Assets, Information, and Services, AIS. This department, which was previously known as the Department of Fleet and Facility Management, or 2FM, has been a co-promotional partner of CTA since 2006. The total value of the co-promotional trade is just under $400,000, and the CTA will provide AIS with interior car cards on bus and rail and space on our digital advertising screens up to this amount in value. As this is unsold advertising space that CTA is providing, and as printing costs are the responsibility of AIS, there's no cost to CTA to enter into this co-promotional agreement. In return, AIS will provide CTA space on 250 JC2Co managed bus shelters that are located throughout the City of Chicago. A total value of the co-promotional to the amount of the equal to the co-promotional trade value. This partnership gives CTA exposure to a larger audience of residents and visitors through advertising on the city's bus shelters. It also enables the City of Chicago to reach CTA customers with important messages related to city programs and events. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Chairman Silva, any questions?
No questions.
Director Peterson.
No question.
Director Rosales.
No questions.
Director Chevrolet.
No questions.
Director Jakes.
No questions.
Director Miller.
No questions.
Director Irvine.
No questions.
Chairman Silva, there are no further questions on this item.
Since there are no further questions, may I have leave to place this item on the omnibus for board approval?
Judge Chevrolet, so moved.
Director Rosales, second.
Thank you. Before we proceed to the contracts, let the record show that the proceedings have been joined by Ellen McCormick, Vice President of Purchasing and Supply Chain, and Juan Pablo Prieto, Director of Diversity Programs, and they both join now. Chairman Silva, we may now proceed to the contracts. Contract A1.
Our next order of business is contract A1, a contract to furnish and deliver engine packages.
Chairman Silva, do you have any questions on this contract?
No, not yet.
Director Peterson.
No.
Director Rosales.
No.
Director Chevrolet.
No questions.
Director Jakes.
No questions.
Director Miller.
No questions.
Director Irvine.
No questions.
Since there are no further questions, Chairman Silva, we may proceed to contract B as in boy 1.
Our next order of business is contract B1 to furnish labor supervision materials and power equipment.
Chairman Silva, do you have any questions?
I don't.
Director Peterson.
I do not.
Director Rosales.
I don't.
Director Chevrolet.
No questions.
Director Jakes.
No questions.
Director Miller.
No questions.
Director Irvine.
No questions.
Since there are no further questions, Chairman Silva, you may proceed to contract B as in boy 2.
Our next order of business is contract B2, repair parts for escalators.
Chairman Silva, do you have any questions?
No.
Director Peterson.
No.
Director Rosales.
No questions.
Director Chevrolet.
No questions.
Director Jakes.
No questions.
Director Miller.
Yes, this is for Juan Pablo. I thank you all for being able, in the midst of the pandemic, still have meeting. But I wanted to ask, how is this going as related to DBEs? Are we still able to meet our quota under the circumstances?
This is Juan Pablo Prieto, Director of Diversity Programs. Yes, Director Reverend Miller, we are still able to set goals on our contracts, and with the tools that we have, still able to communicate with the DBE firms to let them know that there are contracting opportunities with CTA.
Does that answer your question, Director Miller?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Director Irvine.
No questions.
Thank you. Since there are no further questions, Chairman Silva, on this item, you may proceed to contract number B as in boy 3.
Our next order of business is contract B3, a change order to a current inspection contract.
Any questions, Director Silva?
No.
Director Peterson?
Nope, no questions.
None? Okay. Director Alvarez-Rosales?
No questions.
Director Chevrolet?
No questions.
Director Jakes?
No questions.
Director Miller?
No questions.
Director Irvine?
No questions.
Thank you. Since there are no further questions, Chairman Silver, we may proceed to contract number B as in boy 4.
Our next order of business is contract D4, a request for proposal for document management systems.
Any questions? Chairman Silver, no questions? Okay. Director Peterson?
Yeah, I do have a question because I see that the vendor did not meet the DBE goals that were set out in the beginning, and I'm curious, Juan, to hear what proof did they show us in terms of organizations, women-owned businesses, African-American-owned businesses, Hispanic-owned businesses, that they reach out to in terms of trying to meet this goal. And since we're talking about entering into another long-term contract, saying that they weren't able to meet it when it was their stated goal, I'm just curious what proof was shown that who they reached out to. And I would say going forward with this contract, how do we help them possibly connect with DBE-owned businesses who might be able to participate?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is Juan Pablo Prieto again. So this contract, when we set the goal, we had, based on the cost estimates that we were given, we made some calculations. But the contractor came back and said that those roles that we had identified for DBE participation were all internal roles to their proprietary systems, so they couldn't subcontract that out. What they did do was they subcontracted out the training aspect of this, so there will be a DBE doing the training once the software is rolled out to CTA users. We checked with PACE and Metra, who also had a contract with this vendor, and they had the same opportunity for DBE participation through training. During my conversations with the contractor, they did express interest in having DBEs come in and learn about their proprietary software so that they can also become developers of that software, not specifically for this opportunity, but for future opportunities. So we will be working with the contractor to set up those meet and greets.
Well, let me just say, I think that's great, but in light of the fact this is this contract, it looks to be up to 5 years with 3 funded 1-year options. So I'm in 5 years, I'm trying to think. They said not for this contract. Why not for this contract?
The majority of the work or the development is happening in the beginning of the contract. The rest of the contract, and I'm not sure if Bill Mooney is there, he can speak more to that, but it's for the maintenance of the software. So that, again, the majority of the work of the development is because of the beginning of the contract.
All right. Well, did they provide you anything in writing in terms of who they reached out to, who they networked with to try to meet the original DBE goals?
Again, they proposed the maximum DBE participation that they could with the training. Everything else is internal proprietary to their firm, so they will not subcontract that out because there are no other firms that are licensed and trained to develop their software, which is why we suggested having a session with DBE firms who are interested in learning about that, so that in the future there will be DBE firms that are trained and licensed to develop that software.
Here's what I would suggest: trust but verify. I would hope that our IT department, our CIO, I know Veronica was over that department at one point. Maybe we need to go out into the market and see. Like I said, trust but verify. Let's see. And I know Director Rosales is in the IT field, so I just wouldn't leave it up to them. Maybe there's some homework we need to do to verify what they're telling us is absolutely true. Because like I said, with so many technology companies around and doing so much, I just find it hard to believe. And like I said, want to trust them, but I think we need to verify that by maybe working through our CIO and other contacts, try to see if we can help them along with identifying some DBEs who might be able to do some of this work.
Yes, sir.
You've completed, Terry?
Yes.
You're complete?
Yes.
Now excuse me, Greg.
Yes.
Can we pause for a second? We lost Director Irvine.
Yes.
Director Irvine should be back online.
But now we've lost me mentally. Juan Pablo, are we on B3 or
B4?
Right now?
That's before, Greg.
So we are on, Ellen, we are on B4 right now.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I got my markings here. Okay, Director Pearson asked his questions. Director Alvarez, any questions on B4?
Not a question, more of a statement to support what our chairman was saying. In this particular instance, I was gonna mention to you, Juan Pablo, that I thought this is a perfect scenario for a mentor-protege relationship. Because if they're saying that they can train, it could have been part of the contract so that it's a mentor-protege relationship. So by the end of the time that they're doing this, that they finish this, apart from the training piece, they've actually they have a protege that they have trained, and there's plenty of companies that are out there that could possibly do this type of work. And so this.
Yes, that's a great suggestion. We will talk with the contractor and see if we can get that, if we can get them paired up with a DB that they would like to mentor, so that, like you said, at the end of the contract, they can have a protege that's trained in this software.
Thank you.
Director Bill Mooney, Chief Infrastructure Officer, and Chairman Peterson. Just one thing I would note is I think that is an excellent suggestion of a way to look at this. I also note that, as their commitments are the floor to what we expect out of these contractors, and so both Juan Pablo and my staff will go back to the vendor and we'll look for those opportunities. And I think Mentor Protege is a really great one that we can try and well exceed beyond that commitment.
Thank you, Bill. Any questions on this contract before Director Chevrolet?
No questions.
Director Jake?
No questions.
Director Miller?
No question. Just want to add the statement that I need to ask going into another 5 years. I hate to see this go on this, but thank you all, Bill and Juan, that you're going to go back to the table and see if there's some opportunity for the Protege program. So thanks.
Director Irvine?
No questions.
Thank you. Since there are no further questions on this item, Chairman Silva, you may now proceed to contract number B as in boy 5.
Our next order of business is contract B5, a change order to an existing contract concerning interlocking equipment.
Questions, Director Silva?
No, not for me.
Director Peterson?
No questions.
Director Alvarez?
No questions.
Director Chevrolet?
No questions.
Director Jakes?
No questions.
Director Miller?
No questions.
Director Irvine?
No questions.
Thank you. Since there are no further questions on this item, we may now proceed to contract number B as in boy 6.
Our next order of business is the review of contract B6, a change order regarding Blue Line Station renovations. I don't
Questions,
have any
Chairman?
questions.
No questions. Director Peterson?
No questions.
Director Alvarez-Rosales?
No questions.
Director Chevrolet?
No questions.
Director Jakes?
No questions.
Director Miller?
No questions.
Director Irvine?
No questions.
Thank you. Since there are no further questions, Chairman Silver, we may now proceed to contract number C as in cat 1.
Our next order of business is the review of contract C1, a change order to consulting contract.
Questions, Chairman?
No.
Director Peterson?
No questions.
Director Alvarez-Rosales?
No questions.
Director Chevrolet?
No questions.
Director Jakes?
No questions.
Director Miller?
No questions.
Director Irvine?
No questions.
Thank you. Chairman Silver, we may now proceed to contract number C as in cat 2.
Our next order of business is contract C2, an e-payable solution contract.
Chairman Silver?
No.
Director Peterson?
No questions.
Director Alvarez-Rosales?
No questions.
Director Chevrolet?
No questions.
Director Jakes?
No questions.
Director Miller?
No questions.
Director Irvine?
No questions.
Thank you. Chairman Silver, we may now proceed to contract E as in elephant 1.
Our next order of business is contract E1, a printing contract.
Chairman Silver?
No.
Director Peterson?
No questions.
Director Alvarez-Rosales?
None. No questions.
Director Chevrolet?
No questions.
Director Jakes?
No questions.
Director Miller?
No questions.
Director Irvine?
No questions.
Thank you. Chairman Silver, we may now proceed to contract E as in elephant 2.
Our next order of business is contract E2, a lease and maintenance of equipment contract.
Chairman
I
Silver?
don't have any questions.
Okay. Director Peterson?
No questions.
Director Alvarez-Rosales?
No questions.
Director Chevrolet?
No questions.
Director Jakes?
No questions.
Director Miller?
No questions.
Director Irvine?
No questions.
Thank you. Chairman Silver, we may now proceed to contract F1.
Our next order of business is contract F1, a change order to a consulting contract to assist investment decision evaluation. No
Chairman
questions
Silver?
for me.
No questions. Director Peterson?
No question.
Director Alvarez-Rosales?
No questions.
Director Chevrolet?
No questions.
Director Jakes?
No questions.
Director Miller?
No questions.
Director Irvine?
No questions.
Chairman Silver, we may now proceed to contract F2.
Our next order of business is a contract F2, an amendment to a professional task order contract.
Chairman Silver?
No questions from me.
Director Peterson?
No questions.
Director Alvarez-Rosales?
No questions.
Director Chevrolet?
No questions.
Director Jakes?
No questions.
Director Miller?
No questions.
Director Irvine?
No questions.
So no further questions, Chairman Silver. We may now proceed to contract G as in girl 1.
Our next order of business is a contract G1, a change order to a software licensing agreement. No questions.
Director Peterson?
No questions.
Director Alvarez-Rosales?
No question.
Director Chevrolet?
No questions.
Director Jakes?
No questions.
Director Miller?
No questions.
Director Irvine?
No questions.
Chairman Silver, we may now proceed to contract H1.
Our final order of business today is contract H1, change order to a security contract. No questions from me.
Director Peterson?
No questions.
Director Alvarez-Rosales?
No questions.
Director Chevrolet?
No questions.
Director Jakes.
No questions.
Director Miller.
No questions.
Director Irvine.
No questions.
Okay, there are no further questions, Chairman Silva, on any of the purchase and sales award contracts.
Since there are no further questions on the contracts, may I have leave to place all 15 contracts on the omnibus for board approval?
Judge Chevrolet, so moved.
Director Alva Rosales, second.
The leave has been moved and seconded, Chairman Silva, so there is no further business to come before this committee.
Since there is no further business to come before the committee, may I have a motion to approve the omnibus and recommend the omnibus for board approval?
Judge Chevrolet, so moved.
Director Alva Rosales, I have seconded.
It's been moved and seconded. I'll now take a roll call vote. Director Chevrolet?
Yes.
Director Jakes?
Yes.
Director Miller?
Yes.
Director Irvine?
Yes.
Director Alva Rosales?
Yes.
Director Peterson?
Yes.
Chairman Silva?
Yes.
The motion to approve the omnibus passes with 7 yes votes. However, Chairman Silva, before we move on to the final item, I noticed that I made a mistake and did not ask for a motion to approve the minutes. We just voted, but there was no motion on the table. So we need a motion to approve the minutes from the May meeting.
This is Judge Chevrolet. I move that we approve the minutes from last month's meetings.
And this is Director Alva Rosales. I will second that.
Okay, that's been moved and seconded. So now we'll vote on the minutes. Director Chevrolet?
Yes.
Director Jakes?
Yes.
Director Miller?
Yes.
Director Irvine?
Yes.
That was a yes. Director Alva Rosales?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, from both. Director Peterson?
Yes.
Chairman Silva?
Yes.
So the motion to approve the minutes are 7 yes votes. And so, Chairman Silva, we may now proceed to committee agenda item number 8.
And finally, may I have a motion to adjourn?
Judge Chevrolet, I move to adjourn this committee meeting.
Director Alva Rosales, I'll second it.
We'll now take a vote. Director Chevrolet?
Yes.
Director Jakes?
Yes.
Director Miller?
Yes.
Director Irvine?
Yes.
Director Rosales?
Yes.
Director Peterson?
Yes.
Chairman Silva?
Yes.
The motion to adjourn passes with 7 yes votes, and we will begin the board meeting in approximately 1 minute. Back. Herb, are we ready?
We're ready to proceed.
Tabitha, are you ready?
I am ready, thank you.
All right, then I believe, Chairman Peterson, we can begin the board meeting at 10:29 a.m.
All right. Thank you, Greg. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call to order the regular scheduled meeting of Chicago Transit Board for June 10th, 2020. Would the secretary call the roll?
Yes. Director Chevrolet.
Present.
Director Jakes.
Here.
Director Miller.
Here.
Director Irvine.
Here.
Director Alva Rosales.
Here.
Director Silva.
Here.
Chairman Peterson.
Here.
Chairman, we have a quorum of the board with all 7 members present.
Thanks, Greg. The first order of business is public comment. Greg?
Yes, we have no speakers today. However, we do have 2 people have sent in written comments, so I'm going to read them. The first one will be from a John Morrison that was sent to me yesterday at 1 p.m. Hello, Secretary Longini and CTA Board. My name is John Morrison. I am a resident of Chicago's Ravenswood neighborhood, and I am writing to object to the use of CTA buses to transport police and National Guard to protests, and the allegations of threats of punishment for bus drivers who have opposed to this practice. From the death of Laquan McDonald to the allegations of abuses at Home and Square, to say that Chicago's police department has had a fraught relationship with our African American residents is being generous. The Chicago Transit Authority, as a service of the people, should not see its purpose co-opted to aid a police department in dire need of reform. I write today to urge the board to adopt the following. 1, an immediate ban on further usage of CTA vehicles and resources for police enforcement and transportation. 2, investigate allegations of threats against CTA drivers and immediately remove all guilty parties from their roles. 3, issue a public apology to our communities and to your workers and pledge to work with local community organizers to do better going forward. Thank you for your time and consideration. Sincerely, John Morrison. The second written communication came to me yesterday at 11:50 a.m. from a Sean Walter, W-O-L-T-E-R. Hello, my name is Sean Walter. I live in Logan Square. I love the CTA, and I never thought I would have to submit a public comment. The last week has been a wake-up call for me and the city. I don't want the CTA shuttling police or aiding law enforcement, immigration, or a military in any way. Let them get a ride from someone else or use their Ventra card and ride as a civilian. Remove surveillance cameras too while you're at it. That's all. Thank you for reading. Keep up the good work. That concludes the public comment section of today's meeting, sir.
All right. Thank you, Greg. The next order of business today is the approval of the May 13, 2020 board minutes. The minutes were previously distributed. I now entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the regular board meeting of May 13, 2020.
This is Director Chevrolet. I move that we approve the minutes of the May meeting.
This is Director Alva Rosales. I will second that.
Thank you. I will now take a roll call vote. Director Chevrolet?
Yes.
Director Jakes?
Yes.
Director Miller?
Yes.
Director Irvine?
Yes.
Director Alva Rosales?
Yes.
Director Silva?
Yes.
Chairman Peterson?
Yes.
That motion to approve the minutes passes, sir, with 7 yes votes.
Thanks, Greg. The next order of business is board matter. Chief Safety and Security Officer Ron Esther will make a presentation. Ron?
Good morning. Ronald Esther, Chief Safety Security Officer. I'm joined by Kamisha Hill, Senior Manager of Safety Management Systems. This ordinance is for the approval of the Rail and Bus Public Transportation Agency Safety Plans. The Public Transportation Agency Safety Plan PTAS Final Rule 49 CFR Part 673 requires operators of public transportation systems that are recipients or subrecipients of FTA grant funds to develop safety plans that include processes and procedures necessary for implementing the Safety Management System, SMS. SMS is a formal top-down organizational-wide approach to managing safety risk and assuring the effectiveness of the agency's safety risk mitigation. SMS includes systematic procedures, practices, and policies for managing risk and hazards. SMS components include safety management policy, safety risk management, safety assurance, and safety promotion. The final rule became effective on July 19, 2019. Each transit operator is required to certify that it has a safety plan meeting the requirements of the final rule by July 20th, 2020. The deadline has been extended to the end of the year due to the coronavirus. CTA, Chicago Transit Authority's rail and bus agency safety plans meet the requirements of both the Federal Transit Administration and Illinois SSOA, or State Safety Oversight Agency. Staff recommends approval of both the rail and bus agency safety plans. We'll be happy to take any questions.
Are there any questions from board members for Ron? All right, hearing none. Ron, let me just thank you for your presentation, and thank you and the staff and everyone that worked with you in terms of putting the plan together. Really appreciate it. I now entertain a motion to approve an ordinance approving the Authority Public Transit Agency Rail and Bus Safety Plan. May I have a motion?
This is Chevrolet. I move that that plan be accepted.
This is Director Alva Rosales. I will second that.
Thank you. Before I take a roll call vote, for the record, I forgot to mention this, that both President Dorval Carter and General Counsel Karen Simons are also participating in this meeting. So I'll now take the roll call vote on Ron's plan. Director Chevrolet?
Yes.
Director Jakes?
Yes.
Director Miller?
Yes.
Director Irvine?
Yes.
Director Alva Rosales?
Yes.
Director Silva?
Yes.
Chairman Peterson?
Yes.
That motion is approved with 7 yes votes, Chairman Peterson.
Thanks, Greg. The next order of business is a report from the Committee on Finance, Audit, and Budget. Director Silva?
The Committee on Finance, Audit, and Budget met earlier this morning via teleconference. The committee approved the May 13, 2020 minutes. The committee reviewed the finance report. The committee heard a presentation of the independent auditor's report for fiscal year 2019. The committee also reviewed the following two ordinances. An ordinance authorizing a local location pilot program with Amazon.com Services, LLC, to install, operate, and maintain package delivery lockers at designated rail stations. An ordinance authorizing a co-promotional agreement with the City of Chicago through the Department of Asset Information and Services. The committee also reviewed 15 purchase and sales award recommendations. The committee approved both ordinances. All 15 contracts, placed them on the omnibus, and recommend the omnibus for board approval. That concludes my report, Chairman Peterson.
Thank you, Director Silva. Appreciate it. May I now have a motion to approve the omnibus as stated by Director Silva?
I make a motion to approve the omnibus. This is Chevrolet.
Director Alva Rosales. I will second that.
Roll call vote. Director Chevrolet?
Yes.
Director Jakes?
Yes.
Director Miller?
Yes.
Director Irvine?
Yes.
Director Alva Rosales?
Yes.
Director Silva?
Yes.
Chairman Peterson?
Yes.
The motion to approve the omnibus as stated is approved with 7 yes votes, Chairman Peterson.
Thanks, Greg. Is there any new business, Greg, to come before the board?
Yes, President Carter would like to say a few words. So we will now turn this over to President Carter.
Thank you, Greg. Mr. Chairman, I wanted to basically update you on what CTA's plans are as we enter phase 3 of the reopening process, which began last week in the city of Chicago. One of the things that we've been doing literally over the past month or so is starting to prepare for this phase of the reopening process. As part of that preparation, I put together a task force of senior executives at CTA that was basically led by our Chief Innovation Officer, Molly Poppy, to develop CTA's strategy for approaching this phase and future phases of reopening as we move forward. Many of you heard me talk about the challenges of reopening public transit as we move forward, particularly given the limited capacity that we have on CTA and the challenges of social distancing, particularly around public transportation, which is designed to do everything but social distance. And so Molly and the rest of the task force have really been working to develop strategies and communication pieces and information around how we can engage our customers and prepare them for the process of using public transit as we go into this next phase. So I wanted to take a few minutes to walk through those details with you, and I'm going to have Molly talk you through the reopening plan for phase 3 for CTA, and obviously we'll answer any questions that you may have once she completes her presentation. Molly, I'll now turn it over to you.
Thank you, President Carter. Good morning, Chairman Peterson and members of the board. As President Carter mentioned, I'm Molly Poppy. I'm the Chief Innovation Officer for the Chicago Transit Authority. Since the start of the COVID-19 global pandemic, CTA has been actively responding to this crisis and providing critical transportation services to Chicago's essential workers and customers needing to make essential trips. As we move forward with the phased economic and social reopening of the city of Chicago, CTA is prepared with a thoughtful and dynamic plan for our reopening that expands on many of the successful initiatives and operational investments we've made since the start of this crisis. Through our reopening plan, CTA is not only building on these prior initiatives, but we are also employing multiple new strategies to protect our customers and employees while also maintaining the quality service the region relies on. This includes providing our workforce with personal protective equipment, or PPE, and instituting many social distancing controls throughout our system. We're running full service continuously throughout the pandemic and plan to do that for all of our reopening phases, which will allow for maximum amounts of social distancing. We're working in coordination with the Chicago Department of Public Health to establish passenger capacity limits on buses and trains. Our capacity limits are approximately 15 customers on a standard 40-foot bus and approximately 22 customers on a 60-foot articulated bus and each train car. Earlier this week, we launched real-time camera crowd monitoring on train platforms, where we are able to monitor any crowding on the train platforms and then address any issues via audio announcements on the platform. We are also providing consistent and easy-to-understand guidance to our customers around social distancing. This includes encouraging customers to wear face masks on the system and also practice good hand hygiene and other hygiene. Lastly, we're also building a new ridership information dashboard that will provide our customers with ridership information by hour, by bus route. This will really help our customers determine when is the best time to ride based on historic ridership trends during this COVID-19 pandemic and enable them to decide when they should ride based on their own unique circumstances. One area of particular focus since the start of this pandemic has been cleaning. CTA will continue to follow one of the most rigorous cleaning regimens of any U.S. transit agency, which includes cleaning and disinfecting every rail car and bus before it leaves for daily service, disinfecting high-touch surfaces on bus and rail cars throughout the day, and routine deep cleaning of our vehicles and stations. And as part of this reopening, CTA will further enhance our cleaning regimen by exploring new and innovative cleaning technologies and strategies. We're currently utilizing electrostatic sprayers to support vehicle deep cleaning. We're testing some antimicrobial surface coating, which is applied also to the vehicle interiors. And CTA Engineering is reviewing UV light technologies to determine efficacy on CTA systems. We regularly speak with New York's MTA and other agencies about their experience with UV technologies, as well as other cleaning technologies, in the hopes of learning from them, and they can learn from us. CTA is also deploying additional cleaning crews to support even more cleaning at rail terminals and train stations. We know that continuing to enhance our cleaning protocols and looking for new and innovative techniques will be critical to rebuilding ridership and ensuring customers feel safe on our system. And while CTA has taken significant action to respond to COVID-19 and support the gradual reopening of our city, we're also looking to our customers to be partners in this effort. We ask customers to continue the practices they have been following for the last 2 months: social distancing, wearing masks, washing hands, not boarding crowded trains and buses, and being thoughtful about when they ride CTA. As the city and state continue with future phases of reopening, I look forward to discussing those with you and all the additional longer-term investments we are seeking to implement in the months to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Molly, for that update. I'd like to now open up to the board if anyone has any questions for Molly.
Oh, I just want to, this is Director Alba Rosales. So we are offering, I believe you had said in the briefing, we're offering masks and gloves. Is that correct?
That's correct, Director Rosales. As part of the initial reopening plan, we'll be providing, and let me just be clear about this. This is not a long-term provision, but we're going to have an introductory distribution of both hand sanitizers and masks as part of our messaging to encourage customers to wear their mask and to obviously use hand sanitizer, not just on CTA, but wherever they may be going publicly.
Okay.
So, durable question about the hand sanitizer. I know there's the, foam and that. Has there been any thought to sort of like alcohol wipes with 75% alcohol? They're more smaller packages. Somebody could take one, they could take two. I just don't know the cost. But when you talk about a hand sanitizer, what are we talking about in terms of what you're looking to use?
We're talking about miniature bottle hand sanitizers like you can get at a drugstore.
Okay.
The hand wipes issues create a concern for us. One, because it creates more trash on CTA.
Okay.
And so we felt the miniature bottles would be a better way of promoting the cleanliness that our customers should utilize when riding our system, while not obviously increasing the possibility of additional cleaning for CTA.
Okay. All right. Thanks. Any other board members have questions for Molly or Durable?
I have a question. This is Director Jakes. My question for is, we know that based upon what we've seen the past few months, that there are some who are defiant as it relates to wearing masks. If persons or a person is on bus or rail and explain that defiancy of not wearing a mask or such, what ways are there to, for lack of better words, to kind of police it if it's making other passengers uncomfortable?
Well, Director Jakes, I think the harsh reality of this conversation, whether it's on a CTA bus or train or in a office building or anywhere else, is that there is no simple way to enforce it. We communicate it, we encourage it, we certainly provide masks in limited capacity, but just as the city or the state would tell you, the police department is not going to be enforcing mask wearing anywhere in the city. And so part of this comes down to personal accountability and peer pressure as the enforcement mechanism. We hope, and we're certainly going to encourage, and we're going to be communicating and messaging and audio and digital messages constantly about the need to wear masks. But at the end of the day, I have to rely on each individual customer's personal accountability to follow that guidance, because the ability to enforce it is extremely limited, if not impossible, in a particular case-by-case situation.
So rail workers or bus operators will not be put in a position to have to confront passengers?
No, they will not. What I don't want is to put our employees in a confrontational situation over this kind of an issue. They will certainly encourage and remind any passenger that they should wear a mask, but that'll be the extent of their engagement.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Miller here. President Carter, as we enter into phase 3, Has there been any initial preparation coming towards the fall so that we're not caught off guard? I know we can't predict the future, but have we started anything as it relates to coming into the flu season and all?
Well, as Molly Poppy laid out to you, our work in terms of subsequent phases and our preparation continue. There are other strategies and technologies that we're developing that will come into play later on in the year. With regards to a second wave or resurgence of the coronavirus, obviously we already have in place all the protocols that we have been utilizing since the first wave occurred. Those are not being diminished or eliminated. In fact, one of the beauties of the strategy that we've been applying here is that they build on top of each other. So if we did face a situation where there was another need to shelter at home or to start to put more restrictions on people's movements, those protocols as relates to our employees and our service are already in place and would just be implemented seamlessly as part of any subsequent action the city or state may take.
Okay, thank you.
Can you talk about what New York is doing and what is the difference, with Chicago?
Basically, there's no real difference between New York or Chicago or Philadelphia or Boston or Washington, D.C., with one exception. And the one exception is that most other transit systems are talking about reinstituting service as part of their phase 3, for lack of a better word, part of the reopening plan, which is something CTA has not had to do because we never reduced service. But if you look at the messaging protocols, if you look at the customer information activities and all the other things that we've discussed as part of our plan, from my experience and talking not just to our peers but also on national conference calls with APTA, the industry in general, everyone is pretty much following the same playbook in terms of their reopening strategies. And CTA is certainly in line with what we're seeing as industry practices both in New York as well as in other major transit systems around the country.
Thank you.
This is Director Alva Rosales. I have one other question. So with social distancing, we actually get a limited capacity because we're trying to reach 25% and then in the fourth stage, 50%. So has there been some, how could I say, encouragement by the city of Chicago to the businesses to try to extend the telecommuting as much as possible?
The short answer to that, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, that was my question, to help us with reaching, the limited capacity that we are given.
The short answer to that is yes. The city has been communicating, as is CTA, to the business community about continuing to telework, staggered work hours, all the things that we think can help manage the capacity of people using our system. That has been integrated into the city's messaging. We have been working very closely with the city on all of the reopening strategies. And in addition to that, CTA itself is reaching out to businesses and is having similar conversations about what we think are strategies that they should be employing and information they should be giving to their employees about how to safely use CTA. It's also a great opportunity for us to get more feedback on what the business's plans are in terms of using public transportation for their employees, as well as what their plans are around transit benefits and other programs. So yes, there's a dialogue going on at the business community around this exact issue as we speak.
Thank you.
Directors, any additional questions for Dorval or Molly? Hearing none again, Molly, thank you so much for that presentation. Really appreciate it, and would hope that you will continue to keep the board updated as we enter into the phase 3 reopening. And again, I just want to thank Durable and the team and the staff for all that they've been doing over the past 100 days or more as it relates to the COVID-19 pandemic and the recent protests to end racism and injustice in this city, state, and country. I know it's not easy. I know you have to coordinate with City Hall and sometimes CPD and OMEC, but I just want to thank Durable, you and the team for just doing a great job. And I know it's been long hours for a lot of folks, but I just wanted to say on behalf of the board, I want to thank you. I also want to do a shout out to one of our directors, Kevin Irvine. I want to thank him for his advocacy on behalf of the accessible stations. I didn't weigh in on it because Kevin was making the point. During the shutdown, I know there were a number of accessible stations that were shut down and bypassed as a result of the protest that took place, but it was also as a result of Kevin's advocacy that staff went back, shared some of those concerns with City Hall, and I know some of those stations were opened up. So I wanted to thank the staff, one, for listening to Director Irvine, for moving forward with trying to address some of the concerns that he was hearing from the disability community, and I really just appreciate his advocacy. So I wanted to just be on record of sharing that again, thanking the staff and Durable, you for your leadership and doing a great job during this pandemic and the protests to end racism and all that goes with it in this city and country and state. But I also wanted to just do a shout out for my fellow director for his continued advocacy and voice on behalf of the disability community. So with that, Greg, is there any additional business, new business that come before the board?
No, there's no new business.
Chairman Peterson, I need to interrupt. This is Kevin Irvine, and thank you for that recognition. And I want to say that I appreciate Dorval, you and your team are always very, very concerned about accessibility and responsive when we raise accessibility issues. And this instance was certainly not the exception. So thank you to everyone on your team for always making accessibility a priority.
Thank you, Director Irvine.
Thank you.
And just so you know, I think on behalf of all the staff and the executive management team here at CTA, we have certainly appreciated the support the board has given us during this time. As many of you have heard, it has not been an easy period for any of us here at CTA, but we have never had any doubt about the unwavering support that the board has given us as we work through these challenges, and appreciate more than ever the support that the board has shown for not only myself but for the entire CTA team in terms of helping manage this unbelievable pandemic and protests and everything else. So thank you very much for those kind of words.
Thanks, Dorval. Greg, I think you said there's no new business to come before the board.
That's correct. What I would like to say, though, is just as a reminder that our July meeting is the 15th, which is the third Wednesday of the month because of the 4th of July holiday. So it's usually the second Wednesday, but just to remind everybody that the next board meeting is scheduled for July 15th, the third Wednesday. That's all, Chairman.
All right. Thanks for that update. With no further business to come before the board, may I have a motion to adjourn?
Yes, this is Director Chevrolet. Before I make that motion to adjourn, I also want to applaud the efforts of President Carter and the entire staff at the CTA for doing a really good job under very, very trying circumstances. And I move that this meeting of the Chicago Transit Board be adjourned.
And this is Director Alba Rosales. I will second that, and I will also second everything that Director Chevrolet just said. Thank you, and thank you.
Thank you. Then I'll take a roll call vote. Judge Chevrolet.
Yes.
Reverend Jakes.
Yes.
Reverend Miller.
Yes.
Director Irvine.
Yes.
Director Alva Rosales.
Yes.
Director Silva.
Yes.
Chairman Peterson.
Yes.
The motion to adjourn passes with 7 yes votes, sir, so we are adjourned.
Bye,
Thank you,
everybody.
Greg.